Welcome to this explainer. Imagine, for just a second, a massive, universe-wide battle where the ultimate hero fights a grueling campaign to protect the very rules of reality itself. Well, today we are diving into a fascinating devotional text called The Conflict Over to see exactly how this hero fought to protect the universe's laws and, in the process, save us. It is an epic story involving a cosmic courtroom, fierce storms of temptation, and a definitive verdict that literally echoes across all created worlds. So let's just jump right in and see what was at stake. So, how did this whole thing even start? Well, it kicked off with a massive cosmic dispute. Satan basically launched this intense campaign trying to convince the entire universe that God's government was fundamentally flawed. He was essentially out there asking, hey, are God's rules imperfect? Do they need to be amended or maybe just totally thrown out? He argued that the rules were tyrannical and unfair. He was basically putting God's law on trial, right? He wanted the inhabitants of the heavenly universe to question if the Creator's rules were actually just or if the whole system desperately needed a change. Right into the middle of this cosmic rebellion, Jesus steps onto the battlefield, and he anchored his entire campaign on a really profound truth found in Matthew 5:18. It says, "For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law." Jesus was making it absolutely 100% clear from the very start. God's rules are perfectly designed. Not even the absolute smallest stroke of a pen, a jot or a tittle, is ever going to be removed or changed. And that brings us to a really crucial word for this entire controversy: immutable. It's a big word, but it just means completely unchanging, perfect, and unable to be altered or broken. So the big question posed to the entire universe was simply this: is God's law imperfect and in need of an update, or is it absolutely perfectly immutable? Jesus came to our world to definitively prove that it's the latter.
It's literally a cosmic courtroom drama. On one side, you have Satan's accusation. He was trying to paint himself as the good guy, right? Pretending he was fighting for the liberty of the universe by claiming God's law was just this tyrannical restriction. But on the other side, Jesus came to demonstrate the actual reality, that God's government is perfectly stable, completely merciful, and entirely just. This wasn't just some physical battle. It was a high-stakes war of ideas and the ultimate test of character. So where does this massive showdown actually happen? Crazy enough, right here. Earth became the absolute epicenter of a cosmic war. The severity of the trial Jesus faced was completely proportionate to the massive value of what was at stake. And what was at stake wasn't just the fate of our one little planet. Yes, this world was the battlefield, but literally all the worlds that God has created were directly affected by the outcome of this conflict. The intense interests of the entire heavenly universe were focused right here on Earth.
And Satan? He didn't just challenge Jesus once and call it a day. No way. It was a relentless, exhausting pursuit. From the very moment Jesus was in the manger, through the fierce temptations of his earthly ministry, all the way to his ultimate sacrifice on the cross, Satan contested every single inch of ground. The enemy exerted his absolute utmost powers to try and conquer the Son of God, never giving him even a moment's rest from the conflict. Now here's where it gets really insidious. It's important to understand exactly how the enemy fought. Even while Christ was suffering on the cross, Satan's arguments were incredibly varied. He didn't show up looking like a horned monster. He disguised his cruel deeds. He operated through agents that appeared like ordinary righteous priests or even angelic beings to convince onlookers that God's law really was tyrannical. By making these wicked actions look religious, he laid every scheme and instigated false accusations to turn minds against Christ. It was an absolute masterclass in deception. The temptations beat upon Jesus like a fierce tempest. Just try to imagine a massive, unrelenting storm, a hurricane of pressure, pain, and temptation. That is exactly what Jesus experienced as the enemy poured on the afflictions against someone who was pure, holy, and totally innocent. It was this constant, blinding storm designed to make him break under the pressure and somehow validate Satan's claims against God's government. Okay, but here is the absolute most encouraging takeaway from this entire explainer and why this deeply, deeply matters for you today. The more fierce the conflict became, the more familiar Jesus became with the exact temptations that hit humanity. Because he faced that identical fierce tempest, he completely understands what it feels like when you are tempted. And because of that, he is beautifully prepared to succor, which is just an old word meaning to help and comfort, the tempted. He didn't just win a cosmic argument. He gained the ultimate empathy to actually give you the strength to make the right choices in your own life. Meanwhile, Satan's grand, deceptive master plan, It completely backfired. He essentially forged his own chain. By planning every evil scheme and inspiring incredibly cruel deeds against the totally innocent Son of God, Satan severely overplayed his hand. The heavenly universe looked on and saw the sheer horror of what heaven would actually be like if Satan were allowed to run it. By revealing his true malignant character through his own actions, Satan literally forged the very chain of justice, by which he himself will ultimately be bound.
And that brings us to the grand verdict of this cosmic trial. The result of this incredible battlefield was that the immutability of God's law was firmly established, and not just in the minds of a few finite creatures here on Earth, but in the minds of all the inhabitants of the heavenly universe. Having watched this epic showdown, they made their decision. With one united voice, the entire universe extolled God. They forever declared him to be completely righteous, infinitely merciful, self-denying, and perfectly just. Which leaves us with this final, super vital question to ponder today. We've seen that God's law is perfect and that Jesus braved the ultimate storm to protect the universe and to save us. Knowing that the ultimate hero of the cosmos understands exactly what you are going through right now because he faced the tempest himself, will you let him help you make the right choices today? The next time you face your own storm of temptation, remember, you can reach out to the one who is fully prepared to help you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.